One's life begins to change when their desires transform into concrete actions. You're listening to the Desire to Be podcast, where your desires for your life and relationships become your mastery. I'm your host, Devora Goldberg, and thank you for joining. Welcome back to the Desire to Be podcast. In this episode, we're talking about not only business, but business combined with passion. Pessy Schwartz has made it her mission to raise awareness for women to understand their bodies and physiology through her business called Reclaim Womanhood. Now, this is a topic, my friends, that greatly interests me because, we're given our bodies at birth. It's given to us in order for us to take care of, to nurture, to understand. And I think that the better we understand our bodies and the messages that it gives us, I feel that in turn, we can take care of better. And who better to give my listeners more insight on this topic, on a few topics that we're going to talk about, than Pessy herself. And just to make sure you're ready, there's no conversation which is off the table. Everything is approachable with this gal. I'm really excited for us to do a deep dive. So Pessy, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
To start off, please tell my audience a bit about yourself and how your company Reclaim Womanhood began.
So I never intended to have a business like this. I don't even know if I thought of having a business at all. It started as a passion. It started as something that I found for myself, changed my life. And then it started coming to that place of women all over the world should know this, should have this knowledge, should have this tool, this embodiment. And by this, I mean really understanding the wisdom of our cycle and everything it can give us as women. We're trained to think of it as a burden or as something that gets in the way, but it actually has so much to offer us in all areas of our life. And yeah, that drive to really share this with other women drew me to first just sharing. I opened my Instagram account before I ever was doing this as a business. And then slowly I started, moving in that direction, got the trainings to bring this in professionally. And yeah, the rest is history.
You teach about misconceptions that women have when it comes to their cycle. You kind of alluded to that for a moment there. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Pessy, but it might have to do with the way that we're taught about our cycles as preteens, which is something like, you're going to get your period. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. Here's your pad. Here's how you put it on, and good luck. If you were teaching a young girl about her period, what would you say?
Yeah, and I invite anyone listening who had that experience and wants something different to really tune into this and even close your eyes and try to imagine yourself being that teen and getting reacquainted with your cycle from this perspective, because this is so powerful and this is how I would want to have learned it myself and how I would give it over. So the cycle is not just about a period. It's a full spectrum. It's the whole cycle from menstruation to ovulation with everything in between. And it's not about necessarily only fertility or all the other things we attach to it. It's really a way of being with our body, of being in the world, of moving through the world as women, because women are different. We have our own rhythm. We have our own cycle. We are not meant to show up the same every day. And this can help us really honor our daily experience as we move through each day, instead of beating ourselves up. Why can't I be my most productive today? Or why am I not in the same mood as I was yesterday? And why is this happening? Why am I tired? And all that. It gives us the compassion and the understanding of what's going on in our body, and really tuning into the physical symptoms of our body, the emotional symptoms, whatever is coming up for us. And there's different ways of doing it. There's the fertility awareness tracking piece, which we'll get into. But even before that, there's the cycle awareness of really understanding which day of my cycle am I at? Which phase of my cycle am I in? What's the energy of this phase? What can this give us? It's not about one phase being better or worse than the other. It's about different energies and different things we can actually, benefit from, and it can enhance the present moment where we're at. There's no oh, if I'm on my period or if I'm premenstrual, I just have to push through this phase to get to the better part of the cycle. It's not really like that. It's just different sides of the same coin, and we show up differently, but we need all those different sides of ourselves. And that's what makes us, just multifaceted.
By the way, I have teens and I am going to be putting this on for them so they can hear from your perspective. As you're speaking, I'm thinking there's so many jokes out there about women's emotions are so fluctuating and they're so
Mm,
different and oh, she's
mhm,
a woman. Okay, her emotions are crazy. But it sounds to me like it's more to be celebrated than to
mhm,
made fun of. Okay, we make light of different situations, but
mhm.
sounds like there's some kind of energy to be celebrated here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned before about the energy and the different phases of women's menstruation. Can you give us a little more of a deep dive into that?
Yeah, sure. So we live in a world that's mostly masculine dominated, and it's not a negative thing. We need the masculine and the feminine. It's not like one is more important than the other. But as women, our body operates from a feminine perspective, and when we
Mhm.
operate in a masculine way, because that's how the world is training us, it's in conflict with our bodies. And that's when we have sometimes people having different symptoms coming up, and we blame our hormones and we blame the cycle, and like it's just this thing that's giving us all these symptoms. We're not supposed to have those. We're literally not supposed to have pain on our period. We're not supposed to have intense cramping or acne, mood swings, all these things that are very intense. It's usually a reaction of how we're living our life in conflict with how our body wants us to be. Very often, I can't say this as a
For
blanket rule, but I'm
example,
very confident with saying this. For example, if someone is just living in a hustle mindset, like go, 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 do, not stopping, not resting, and that's the 9 to 5 mindset, the hustle mindset, the way our world is structured in that masculine way. And then when we don't have that time to rest or slow down or just be, it catches up to us. And then we get that fatigue. We're feeling really tired, overwhelmed. Um, Sometimes we have that premenstrual crash or just feeling really like we're falling apart on our period. Whatever it is, it's really our cycle showing us how we're meant to live versus how we're trying to, like, we're putting ourselves into a box that we're not meant to be in, as opposed to adapting to what we're actually meant to be.
so what does that look like if we were to adapt the way we're meant to be? And you and I are two different women. We have two different cycles. How can you honor your cycle to be more in tune? And how can I do it in my cycle as well?
Yeah, so we were starting to talk about different energies, and there's also different levels of productivity and times when we are more action oriented, more even more masculine, if you will. There are parts of the cycle where we do have more of a masculine going forward, being productive, doing energy, and that's great, and we should totally use that. But then there are other times of the cycle where our body is calling us inward. We're just meant to rest and slow down and be with ourselves because the integration piece is just as important as the action piece. And even in business and even in whatever you're doing in your life, that piece is as productive. I'm just saying productive in quotes because the point is not about being productive, but it's also as productive as doing the things you need to do in your business or in your life or anywhere. So having that time to really be in that stillness, to be in your body, to be present with yourself, and there are different ways. There are some, resources out there of a cycle aligned business model where you use the weeks of your cycle where you are in a more productive stage to do certain tasks and certain like networking or presentation type of work or very action oriented, very social oriented type of work in your business when you're in your ovulation phase, because
Mhm.
that's when you are more social and outward and use that energy for your advantage. And then using more like the winding down tasks or things that are more technical. Sometimes that can be a great thing to do in the luteal phase when you are more like in a nesting kind of energy place. And then, having rest time set aside for your period. I know it's revolutionary and radical, but it really shouldn't be. It's basic. Just like you're meant to sleep at night, you're meant to rest at your period. Our body is literally set up that way. So yeah, and I think there's a misconception that if you do it this way, you'll be less productive, you'll do less in general, but it's really not true because you're preventing burnout that way. You're in a rhythm. So we have that ebb and flow, that up and down, that rise and fall, and that's normal and natural. And then when we're in that productive stage, like, whoa, you are so productive because you're
Mhm.
honoring the rest phase and you can really, really, really be at your peak when you're in the ovulation energy as well.
And how can we navigate? Sometimes in business, you have to show up for a presentation and you're in your resting stage. How can you honor both?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I've definitely had that. And I think it's really, as soon as you honor it, you're already 90% of the work done. Like as soon as you're in that
Acknowledge
mindset,
it.
yes, and you're in that mindset of this is where I'm at, this is how I can show up, this is what I'm meant to do right now. And then yes, there is a presentation you have to give. Can you honor that energy that you're showing up with? Maybe that this presentation is meant to be more from a stillness energy, more like that, that powerful stillness that you can come with, and maybe
Mhm.
that will be what that presentation is supposed to be, as opposed to like, like that excitement that you might have when you're ovulating. Like you're showing up differently, and honoring the energy that you're showing up with and trusting that this is exactly where you're meant to be right now.
What
And
about nutrition during this time? Is there specific nutrition that people should be focused on different times of the month?
so we just like we are different every day. We also have different needs through different phases of the cycle. Like in the beginning of the before ovulation and the follicular phase, which is right after your period until ovulation, you might like find yourself wanting more lighter foods or not such heavy. And then closer to your period, you might crave more nutrient dense carbs and stuff like that. But I don't like putting out blanket statements like that because I really believe in the intuition of our own bodies and tuning into what we need and honoring that. So there are these cycle syncing methods, it's called, where they tell you what to eat in different phases of the cycle. I'm really not a fan of that because it just makes it another rule, another thing to follow, as opposed to honoring the wisdom of your own body, which is the whole point. Like it's kind of, negating the point of cycle awareness to begin with.
Yeah.
So you can have that knowledge of, yes, we have different needs throughout the body, throughout the cycle, different nutritional needs, things like that. But then really, what do I need?
Yeah. People compare with the woman's cycle to the moon.
Yes.
Describe this to us, please.
So both women and the moon cycle in a monthly pattern. Ideally, obviously, people have different fluctuations, but that's the average cycle length is very much comparable to the moon cycle. And we're Orthodox Jewish women, and we can look at the Jewish traditions for this as well, where we have the monthly celebration of Rosh Chodesh, which is a celebration for women specifically. And that's not a mistake. That's not like just random. It really does honor the cycle that we move through. The reason women were given the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh is that they didn't participate in the sin of the golden calf, which is like
Mhm.
a whole different, we didn't have to get into that. But the reason they didn't participate in that is because they understood the power of cycles, that we don't expect things to be like the same every day. We understand that things have a rhythm and a time, and we can trust that, as opposed to the rest of the nation, we're just like, the way that, I mean, we don't have to go into all the details, but the way that happened is that they were just impatient and didn't want to wait for my
Mm.
shit to come back. And they were just like, going their own way with that. And the women didn't participate in that because they trusted that it's not like that. And there is a process here to trust. So, um, yeah, and that's just our strength throughout the generations, all the time, that we have that rhythm that we can move through. And it starts with our own body. It's not something that's just random of like, okay, we can just tap into that from a mental perspective. It starts in our body, trusting our own cycle, moving through our own cycle. And with each cycle, it literally reaffirms our faith in the process of like, yes, things come and go. Nothing is forever. This too shall pass. It's not just mental affirmation, it's in our body. Our body knows that. And we move through life so differently that way.
Wow. I'm just processing it all. It's such a beautiful comparison to the woman in the time of the golden calf and understanding really what went on there because we learn it very factual. Like, oh, they needed Moshe back and they needed to
Hmm.
create a golden calf. But really, what was it? It was impatience, and the women had that intuition within them.
Yeah.
I want to shift topic a bit to talk about fertility awareness.
Yes.
Tell us what that is in your opinion and why is it so important?
So, from my perspective, fertility awareness is a really great way to physically embody this concept of being with our cycle, being in tune with our cycle, knowing when we ovulate, knowing when we're fertile. We're not fertile every day of the cycle. We only have a small window of about 5 to 7 days every cycle that we can actually get pregnant. But it's more than just, I mean, you can absolutely use this knowledge to get pregnant or avoid getting pregnant naturally without any side effects. Like this is your cycle and we can have that wisdom. And I believe every woman should have it, whether or not they choose to use it as birth control or for conception. Like just have that knowledge about your body. Like this should be so basic. But beyond fertility, beyond reproduction, this also helps us tune into what we were talking about before, the rhythm of the cycle, knowing your own, what's going on in your body. Where are you at? Which phase are you at? And just seeing this reflected in the symptoms of your body, of because our body tells us where we're at. It's not just like, oh, I don't know when I'm getting my period. I don't know where I am in the cycle. You can know there is a system, there is a way, and this is scientifically proven. And I teach that, and it's really powerful.
And for women who don't have fertility awareness just yet, where would you tell them to start?
So you can start with a basic rhythm of your cycle. If you cycle monthly, then you can, divide it throughout the month and assume you're in the first phase of the cycle in the beginning, and then you move through the different phases until you get to the end of your cycle. You can also apply to the moon cycle if you don't have a cycle of your own. Let's say you're on hormonal birth control that is suppressing your own cycle, or if you're pregnant, or if you're breastfeeding or postmenopausal, you can always access, we all have access to our cyclical power. It's really not exclusive. We have access to our cyclical power. We can connect to the moon. It's really powerful. Again, there is an additional power to our own cycle that is in our own body, but there's definitely that power as well.
What are the different hormones in the woman's body? And how does birth control stop them from working properly if a woman chooses to go that route?
So this rhythm that we were talking about, that the up and down, the rise and fall, you can literally see it on a hormone chart. They're the two main hormones we're talking about, and there's more, but for this conversation, I'll focus on these two,
Hmm.
is estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen leads us through the first half of the cycle. From our period until ovulation, it's the rising energy, it's the energy, like it gives you that energy and spark and ambition and libido and everything that, comes along with that territory. And it peaks at ovulation. So that's estrogen. And then once we ovulate, that's like the peak of our cycle. If you think about like a mountain, like the rise and fall, the peak is ovulation, and then that's when we start to descend. And that's when we
Hmm.
go back inward into ourselves. Like the rise is the outward, like, okay, world, I'm here to show up and offer all the amazing things I have to offer you. And then we're descending back inward to recharge, to reabsorb again for ourselves. Because, yeah, we can't just show up outward and just give all the time. We need that inwardness as well. And that's the downward flow. And that's when that's the downward flow of estrogen. So estrogen winds down, but then we have a new hormone called progesterone that we only make when we ovulate naturally. And that's a really powerful hormone of regulation, of, just giving us that calm. It's a very soothing hormone. It's the pregnancy hormone. So that's the hormone that will sustain a pregnancy if that's what's happening. So what birth control does, it suppresses both of these and adds a new mix to the situation where we have synthetic estrogen and progestin, trying to mimic what estrogen and progesterone do in our natural cycle. But like we said before, it's more than just reproduction. Our hormones are not just helping us get pregnant and stay pregnant, it's also helping our brain function, our heart, our liver, everything in our body. So the synthetic versions don't do all that. So we lose out on all the other benefits that our natural hormones would have given us.
What I love about this is that a person should really know it's not just one pill affecting one aspect of her life, it's a pill that could be affecting other aspects as well. Tell us what
Yes.
kind of side effects people are experiencing, which it may not be in the fine print of the birth control pill pack, but it's something where it might be something like chronic fatigue that she's
Yeah.
experiencing, and it's because her hormones are being subdued. Give us some examples.
Yeah. So a lot of these are in the fine print, and the problem is nobody reads them. And then I don't know why we have articles saying there are no side effects to birth control when it's clearly written in the fine print. But realistically speaking, yeah, I believe in hearing women's experiences first and foremost. And women do experience side effects on the pill, and some don't, and that's great, whatever works for you. But the women who do experience it should know that it's not all in their head, it's a real thing. And this is why, because our hormones are so interactive with all the different systems in our body. So it just makes so much sense that different things
Mhm.
will be affected, like our libido and our energy levels and fatigue, and all those things are greatly impacted by our hormones. So naturally, putting in a synthetic version of those will affect the way those things work for us. And really the biggest way to know, I mean, when you know is when you go with birth control and you feel that aliveness, you feel like such a difference, like, whoa, where was this person I was waiting for? And
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone has to have that experience, but when you have that, it's like such a validation, like, yes, I am a new person. This was not me. This was the birth control. This was not me. I'm not crazy. That could be really validating.
Yeah. And for people who, for their personal reason, they need to be on birth control, it's must be empowering for them to know that they can work with their cycle without having something external affecting their
Yes,
bodies.
absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have any success stories such as that you were able to help someone through this scenario?
Literally all my clients. What do
Oh,
you
yeah.
mean? Yeah, this is what I do. I guide people to learn the fertility awareness method, to be empowered, to know their own body, their own cycle, and use this either as natural birth control or to get pregnant when they were maybe struggling, and all of a sudden they have that understanding of how their body actually works, which really this should be a front line, just awareness of your body before trying anything else. Unfortunately, lots of people don't have that. So yeah, that's literally what I do.
Yeah. Are you pushing for this to be part of the curriculum for brides when they're having kallah classes?
I am a kallah teacher.
So
And
it's in your course.
it's in my course, I focus mostly on teaching fertility awareness, but I absolutely bring in Tahara Samashpacha as well as a kallah teacher. I don't teach the halacha part of it yet, like not in this course, but I teach the hashkafa pieces and how it really aligns so well together because our Jewish tradition really understands this about the cycle and women and how we are meant to be aligned. And Tahara Samashpacha really focuses on that. And then the problem is if we're not embodied, which so many of us are disconnected, it feels like there's that conflict, like I don't like this, or I don't want to do this practice, or it's constricting me or it's limiting me. And really, if we understand how our cycle actually works, it's in alignment with our cycle. We're just not aligned with our cycle.
Yeah.
So having that knowledge really, for me, it enhanced my Tahara Samashpacha practice immensely, and for so many of my clients. And yeah, it's really powerful.
What are your most common questions you get from women across the spectrum?
There are so many. I literally get all kinds of questions. Well, a big concern people have is this effective? Like they want to make sure they absolutely cannot risk the pregnancy right now, and is this something that they should do? So I can tell you that. I could tell you the statistics are really high,
Right.
very comparable to hormonal birth control when done properly, when learned correctly, which you absolutely get with me. You get the full education and support. Like I really believe in doing this fully to give you the best chances. But I can't answer that for you. Like this is a user-dependent method, which means that the effectiveness will depend on you and
Mm.
how, and that's also why it's not pushed so much in the mainstream because people don't believe in us that we can do this and that we have the power and the knowledge to actually take charge of our own fertility and know our own bodies. But we do, we absolutely do, but it will depend on you and how motivated you are.
Why do you think women are not believed or given that power out there in the world?
So I think a lot of it begins with ourselves, and when we trust ourselves, it does filter outward as well. We are more trusted when we trust ourselves, and women are scared. Women are scared, because this is such a vulnerable and big piece of our lives, and understandably so. Like this is a big piece of it. I don't know. I don't know if we have to wait for others to trust us. Like that's really not the point. It's really about can we trust ourselves? Can we, show up for ourselves and care for ourselves this way? I don't know what it will take to get others to trust us. That's not like my mission in this world. Like I really
Right.
want to empower women directly.
Start within. I know you have different courses, you have different material that you offer to people. Tell my listeners what you have out there that they can benefit from.
So I have a course starting on May 13. So when we're recording this, it's 2024. But if you're hearing this later, there will absolutely be more of this in the future. And this course is really, like I was saying before, the full education and not just knowledge and information. It's also the support, the community, the energy of the space. It's so intentional. It's really helping you go inward and be honest with yourself and know what's right for you, but also it's not about memorizing information. It's about embodiment. And when we are truly connected with our body, and I give you the tools to do that in that course, and we understand how our bodies work and how it all makes sense and how it's all connected, the rules don't feel like a pressure. It feels like an alignment. It feels like, oh, yes, like this is my cervical fluid. This is my temperature. This is my chart. Like those are just the technical aspects of the fertility awareness method. But so many women get overwhelmed by the technical stuff and the sciencey stuff. And like, we don't want to go back to school and learn biology right now. It's not about that. It's about coming home to our bodies, knowing the wisdom within, and combining what I do in my courses. I combine the scientific facts with the intuition that we have within, with the intuitive knowledge that we can connect to. So it's both together. It's not just, yes, we want to have the scientific accuracy, like, are you doing this correctly? Is this effective? Yes, you want that reassurance, but you also want to learn how to tune into your own body.
Wow. And what do you have for my listeners who are listening to this now, who are interested in taking your course? What can you offer them?
Yes, I have a coupon code for anyone listening. You can put in the code DESIRE, and I guess the link to the course will be in the show notes.
Yes, exactly.
So you can put in the code DESIRE to get $35 off the course. And also, I need to mention, once you're in my course, I believe in lifetime learning, and you come back to it every time differently. You can come back every year when I offer this again because you'll come back from a different perspective. You might be postpartum, you might be trying to conceive, you might be breastfeeding, you might be just having regular cycles or maybe irregular cycles or different hormonal things going on, and you want that support. You're in, you already paid for the course, you already had that first initial experience. You can come back again and get what you need to get the next time again.
Yeah, and I love that because it's support throughout a woman's
Yes.
awareness of her body in the different
Hmm.
phases that she's in. So it's not just a
Yes.
one-time stop shop. It's
And it
Continuous.
relieves, like my whole point is to relieve the pressure. It relieves the pressure of I need to take everything in and remember everything because this is it. These are my 4 weeks. It's a 4-week course, plus everyone gets a 1.5 hour follow-up session. And there's also an additional option to do 3 months of follow-up support, which is really the ultimate way to have my eyes on your chart, to do 3 months of practice of actually implementing this method, because we need 3 months of practice to do this correctly and accurately before we trust it. And it's a process, and the hand holding and the guidance is really priceless for this transition. Then you have it for life. So you have someone being there for you in this process of learning it correctly.
Love that.
What did I want to say? Now I
I'm
should have
assuming
finished
this
my
is not
thought.
the first time you had this course, right?
So it's not the first time, but it's the first time that I really put so many extra things into it and built it up in a way that's this is the ultimate offer that I want women to have when it comes to fertility awareness, especially in the Orthodox Jewish world. I combine my knowledge as a kallah teacher, as a life coach, as a fertility awareness educator, and really bring it all together. You have the full physical, emotional, mental, spiritual support and container to do this in a way that is wholesome and acknowledges all the different facets of it, and you really feel seen and validated and supported throughout the process.
Yeah. Tell my audience a story of someone who's taken this course before and it really made an impact on their life.
So, my favorite, this is not a specific person, but it's in general this life stage. My favorite charting clients are postpartum who are able to detect their first return of fertility through their charts. They're nursing and they don't have their cycles for a while, and then they see that they're getting their period back and they actually get their period back and they didn't get pregnant, and they really feel empowered that this works and they can actually understand their fertility regardless of whether, and this is something that people don't always know, regardless of whether you have regular cycles or cycles at all, you can know and understand your fertility patterns by learning this method correctly. So those are my favorite, like to really confirm that first ovulation and that first cycle and just like, wow, let's celebrate that. Another really powerful moment I had recently with a client, and this is something also that I see commonly, is with people that are nervous. This is with single women who are nervous about dating or getting married, and they don't have the full knowledge because, like you said before, we don't always get that full knowledge, and this should be basic for everyone. And they come to me, they learn about their cycles, and they feel so empowered and they feel ready. And then this girl got engaged, and she feels so empowered by this. And it's a beautiful time to learn this. It's a beautiful way to go into your married life and into this phase with having this information about you. But so many of us like were struggling in the beginning or didn't have that full awareness and either found out the hard way or struggled first until we got to more information. Like it shouldn't be that way. This is beautiful to have this before.
Yeah, absolutely. On the Desire to Be podcast, I like to hone in on my guests' desire for greatness, for changing something within themselves, changing something for others, offering some greatness to others, and really making a mark on this world. It seems like you're really right there on the charts and you see how what you're offering in terms of the knowledge that you put out, the courses that you give really has changed people's lives. What would you say your desire is as of now for yourself, for your community, for your clients?
So I would like to keep showing up from a place of alignment of this is my work, this is my passion. Also knowing for myself, like I practice this in my own life. This is not just something I preach. This is real personal integration. So I don't want to be burnt out. I don't want to like come to a place where I don't want to do this work. And I have my moments. I have my moments like, what did I get myself into? I just want to quit. Like, why am I doing this? I never wanted this. I never like wanted the public, part of this or doing this on such a big scale. But it's also so important and impactful. And when I come back to that, when I come back to my passion and what initially led me to this and what my initial drive that, started all this, I come back to my happy place. I come back to the place where yes, this is my life's work. This is my mission. This is my joy. Like really bringing the joy. Everyone should have joy in their work and in what they do. Especially as women, we are creatures of pleasure. And if anything teaches you that, it's cycle awareness and being in tune with your body. That's the most, aligned and embodied place to be. And it absolutely impacts my business, the way I show up for people, the way I hope my clients can show up through this work as well.
Love that. If my listeners would like to connect with you personally, how can they get in touch?
So I'm on Instagram at Reclaim Womanhood. I have a website, reclaimwomanhood.com. Very easy, everything the same thing. There's also an email list you can sign up to. Maybe we can put that in the show notes as well if you want.
Absolutely. And we're going to drop in the show notes exactly how people can sign up for your course with a $35 discount with the word desire. Pessy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and best of luck in everything that you do. What a great episode. Thank you for being here. I truly, truly appreciate you. I'd love for you to tap 5 stars and let me know what resonated. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn under my name, Devora Goldberg. That's where I give you more content. That's where we're able to engage even further. Until next episode, stay safe and be well.